Into the darkness we must go. Gone, gone is the light. Into the darkness we must go. Gone, gone is the light.
Welcome to our combined 2021 Good Friday service. We are gathered in the presence of our God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. On behalf of Ashburton Uniting Church, I warmly welcome you all this morning. Special welcome to our Baptist members, our Zoom members, and all of you who are tuning in this morning. There is a saying that says, there is nothing more beautiful and joyful but the gathering together of the family of God. It is good to be together again as God's family after the long period of lockdown and isolation. Today is a day for the utmost humility. The highest state of human life is not grasped by self-possession, but flows from self-giving. Our Lord Jesus Christ said, "The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life is a ransom for many." The Apostle John wrote, "So the soldiers took Jesus and he went out bearing his cross to the place called Golgotha. There they crucified him." Come, let us worship and bow down. Let us come before the awesome God who is our Saviour. Amen.
Now before the festival of the Passover, Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart from this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The devil had already put it into the heart of Judas' son Simon Iscariot to betray him. And during supper, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going to God, got up from the table, took off his outer robe and tied a towel around himself. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel that was tied around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus answered, "You do not know what I am doing now, but you will understand later." Peter said to him, "You will never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no share with me." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head." Jesus said to him, "One who is bathed does not need to wash, except for the feet, but is entirely clean. And you are clean, though not all of you." For he knew who was to betray him. For this reason he said, "Not all of you are clean." After he had washed their feet, had put on his robe, and had returned to the table, he said to them, "Do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for that is what I am. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet."
Now the beginnings, the hour of Christ's Passover out of this world to his Father, begins too his dispossession, the laying aside this night of his garments, tomorrow of his life. With a servant's towel, this night Jesus wraps himself in love. Tomorrow he will be unwrapped, naked and exposed by hate. In his hands he takes the holy vessels, a bowl of water and his disciples' feet. These are the simple things that at this last feast of friendship are signs and symbols of the everything that the Father puts into his hands. The Master kneels as servant before each of his disciples. There is no discrimination between enemy and friend. All are washed and fed. There is communion too, in the love command to do what Jesus does, to be broken, given and consumed in the service of the brothers and sisters.
While they were eating, Jesus took a loaf of bread, and after blessing it, broke it, and gave it to his disciples, saying, "Take, eat, this is my body." Then he took a cup, and after giving thanks, he gave it to his disciples, saying, "Drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will never again drink of this fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it anew with you in my Father's kingdom." When they had sung the hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus said to them, "You will all become deserters because of me this night. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I'm raised up, I will go ahead of you to Galilee." Peter said to him, "Though all become deserters because of you, I will never desert you." Jesus said to him, "Truly I tell you, this very night, before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter said to him, "Even though I must die with you, I will not deny you." And so say all the disciples. Then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciple, "Sit here while I go over there to pray." He took with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee, and began to grieve and agitated. Then he said to them, "I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and stay awake with me." And going a little further, he threw himself to the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not what I want, but what you want." Then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "So could you not stay awake with me 1 hour? Stay awake and pray that you may not come into the time of trial. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." Again he went away for the 2nd time and prayed, "My Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done." Again he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. So leaving them again, he went away and prayed for the 3rd time, saying the same words. Then he came to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? See, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up. Let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand. Across the Kindred Valley, into the night gardens of Gethsemane, among the ancient olive trees, Jesus lies like a protruding root, something to be avoided or tripped over and then kicked. His face is rubbed into the small mysteries he loved, the soil and seed and dusty sparrows. He feels the terror in them and in all the little last things of our living and our dying. Peter, the rock, crumbles into a soft sand drift of sleep, and the dreaming Zebedees care little now about the right or the left hand places beside the man so crushed by the agony of generations. The traitor's kiss smacked them from their sleep. The violence of the mob spoils a feeble play of swords. Their following after Jesus is distorted into the flight away from him.
Then they seized him and led him away, bringing him into the high priest's house. But Peter was following at a distance. When they kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat down together, Peter sat among them. And then a servant girl, seeing him in the firelight, stared at him and said, "This man was also with him." But he denied it, saying, "Woman, I do not know you." A little later, someone else, on seeing him, said, "You are also one of them." But Peter said, "Man, I am not." And then about an hour later, still another kept insisting, "Surely this man also was with him, for he is a Galilean." But Peter said, "Man, I do not know what you are talking about." At that moment, while he was still speaking, a cock crowed. And the Lord turned and looked at Peter. And then Peter remembered the word of the Lord, how he had said to him, "Before the cock crows today, you will deny me 3 times." And he went out and wept bitterly. Inside the high priest's courtyard, the dignity of Jesus confronts the indignity of his enemies. In the silent Jesus, the high priest cannot find any revelation of the living God. And when the I Am does speak, his words are drowned in spit and slaps, and the death rents of a garment torn for blasphemy. Outside, Peter's trial begins. Before a servant girl, the disciple spins a web of lies, traps himself in cowardice. Huddled with the enemies, no fire can warm the cold treason on his lips and in his frozen heart. Speech has often been Peter's downfall, but never like this night. The night of threefold I am not. A cock crow signals dawn, dawn of the darkest day of Peter's life. And then Jesus turns and passes by, and remembrance of the Master's words dissolves his sin in tears.
Then they took Jesus from Caiaphas to Pilate's headquarters. It was early in the morning. They themselves did not enter the headquarters so as to avoid ritual defilement and to be able to eat the Passover. So Pilate went out to them and said, "What accusation do you bring against this man?" They answered, "If this man were not a criminal, we would not have handed him over to you." Pilate said to them, "Take him yourselves and judge him according to your law." The Jews replied, "We are not permitted to put anyone to death." This was to fulfill what Jesus had said when he indicated the kind of death he was to die. Then Pilate entered the headquarters again, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Do you ask this on your own, or did others tell you about me?" Pilate replied, "I am not a Jew, am I? Your own nation and the chief priests have handed you over to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not from this world. If my kingdom were from this world, my followers would be fighting to keep me from being handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not from here." Pilate asked him, "So you are a king?" Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. For this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." Pilate asked him, "What is truth?" After he had said this, he went out to the Jews again and told them, "I find no case against him." The reflection for this passage: when day dawns on darkness, Jesus is parceled up, stamped with dangerous contents, and express delivered to the headquarters of the Roman governor, Pilate, friend of Caesar. The governor wobbles from one opinion to another, and chameleon-like, he scuttles back and forth, in and out, taking on the color of those with whom he finds himself. Before the calm dignity of Jesus, Pilate himself is put on trial. He would much prefer this Jew to be as slippery as the blood that some are calling for, and wriggle out of Pilate's conscience and this trial. The defensive questions of the would-be neutral man leave a bitter taste of compromise in Pilate's mouth, but he silences the tumult of the truth within him and his cynicism. What is truth?
Then Pilate took Jesus and had him flogged, and the soldiers wove a crown of thorns and put it on his head, and they dressed him in a purple robe. They kept coming up to him saying, "Hail, the King of the Jews," and striking him on the face. As a last bid for his conscience, Pilate will make a fool out of one of the Jews and fool Jesus' enemies into thinking that such a man cannot be taken seriously. A bit of exercise is just the thing for Roman soldiers hanging around waiting for some action, preferably a crucifixion. Pilate hands him over to them. Strip him, pop a tatty purple robe on him, crown him, flog him, hand him his reedy sceptre, gamble the king's game with him. Behold the man. Behold the heights and the depths of human possibility, the best and the worst of what we do to one another.
As they led him away, they seized a man, Simon of Cyrene, who was coming from the country, and they laid the cross on him and made him carry it behind Jesus. A great number of the people followed him, and among them were women who were beating their breasts and wailing for him. But Jesus turned to them and said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For the days are surely coming when they will say, 'Blessed are the barren and the wombs that never bore, and the breasts that never nursed.' Then they will begin to say to the mountains, 'Fall on us,' and to the hills, 'Cover us.' For if they do this when the wood is green, what will happen when it is dry?" They sweep down upon Jesus like a gale of mourners, caught up in the tempest of his pain. Jesus, the green and innocent tree, drips with his life sap and bends into their grief a storm of sorrow for their city. In the past, he wept his own tears over beloved Jerusalem. Now the lamentation of its daughters turns him towards the future. Jesus overshadows them with tragic beatitudes. Blessed the dry breasts and sterile wombs, lest the innocent be born to suffering.
When they came to the place that is called the Skull, they crucified Jesus there with the criminals, one on his right and one on his left. Then Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." And they cast lots to divide his clothing. Soldier nursemaids have prepared the son for his restless bed, undressed him roughly, washed him in his blood, and gamble the remnants of his clothes. Crucifixion is not a silent job. The screaming of the iron drilling into wood, the chorus of his cracking bones, and the mad music of his muscles tearing play a cruel lullaby of salvation. He hangs stripped. He whose own words and touch once stripped sores from skin, tore film from blind eyes, and shame from bleeding women, is now exposed and naked to abuse. Nailed hands can no longer touch, but a swollen, bloodied tongue can still mouth a painful prayer. In his own helplessness, begging his Father to forgive his enemies.
Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. Father, forgive them, they know not what they do.
There was also an inscription over him, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals who were hanged railed at him, saying, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other rebuked him, saying, "Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we are receiving the due reward for our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong." And he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus said to him, "Truly, I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise."
Jesus, remember me when you enter your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when your kingdom.
Meanwhile, standing near the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing beside her, he said to his mother, "Woman, here is your son." Then he said to the disciple, "Here is your mother." And from that hour, the disciple took her into his own home. The mother stands and watches. At his birth, he passed into life through her water and her blood. At his death, he made his exodus through the flood of his own blood and tears. If only she could weave a new skin for him, push him from this cross back into her womb, so that they might end as they began, together in one flesh, one body. The disciple called Beloved has made a shorter journey to this place. Friends of Jesus' hour, he watches the strong heart he leant against a night ago now flutter faintly in a suffocating chest. Jesus calls to them, dispossesses himself in love, and gives them away to one another as mother and son, woman and man, to welcome and care for each other as a communion of disciples, the church that we should be.
When it was noon, darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon. At 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? When some of the bystanders heard it, they said, listen, he is calling for Elijah. And someone ran, filled a sponge with sour wine, put it on a stick, and gave it to him to drink, saying, wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to take him down. Then Jesus gave a loud cry and breathed his last. And the curtain of the temple was torn in two, from top to bottom. Now when the centurion, who stood facing him, saw that in this way he breathed his last, he said, truly this man was God's son. We reflect on this reading. In the high, hot light of afternoon, it seemed the world pulled down a shade upon this killing field. The sun is turned to darkness, and creation too is crippled like its firstborn. Sometimes the guilty gurgle into death, and the innocent weep out their lives. But in his mother tongue, the precious language of the dying, Jesus shouts a faithful lamentation to the absent presence of his God. As he yielded up his spirit to the one whom he calls Father, Jesus' last breath gently nails the centurion facing him to a Gentile faith in the Son of God.
After these things, Joseph of Arimathea, who was a disciple of Jesus, though a secret one because of his fear of the Jews, asked Pilate to let him take away the body of Jesus. Pilate gave him permission, so he came and removed the body. Nicodemus, who had first come to Jesus by night, also came, bringing a mixture of myrrh and aloes, weighing about 100 pounds. They took the body of Jesus, wrapped it in the spices in linen cloths, according to the burial custom of the Jews. Now there was a garden in the place where he was crucified, and in the garden there was a new tomb in which no one had ever been laid. And so, because it was a Jewish day of preparation, and the tomb was nearby, they laid Jesus there. The first fruits of Jesus' death are quickly harvested, caring nothing for his status or the secrecy of his discipleship. Joseph of Arimathea unpins the drained and wounded body from its wooden mount. And Nicodemus comes, not with his earlier weighty questions of the night, but with a load of costly oils and spices, befitting the funeral cortege of a king. There is no other answer needed now but friendship. In linen cloths they wrap the fragile flesh, and for his Sabbath rest return this clay of Adam to a garden and a new tomb. The most ancient arms of mothering earth embrace him.